Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today, beautiful? My name is Joesephyr, and today should you pull video for Dissidia Opera Omnia. We're going to be covering a very powerful character returning to our screens in core, and he's getting a pretty hefty upgrade, seeing as this was his initial release in JP, where in global version we've had him once before, and he's going to be bringing a new FR weapon to the fray, as well as bringing reworks for Gao. But is that FR really necessary to his kit, considering quite how many people pulled for him the first time around, where he was pretty busted then? Or does he stay busted without it, and is he actually busted enough for people who perhaps don't have his kit to warrant going for him? The answer is yes. For those of you who want to learn more, then by all means stay tuned and keep on watching. Before we get started, of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Over on Twitch, you can find me streaming pretty much every event that comes out live for Dissidia Opera Omnia. Obviously, in a couple of weeks, I will be going over to the US for TwitchCon, so if you happen to be going, then it would be lovely to see some of you guys, but just be warned that obviously I will not be streaming much while I'm on the other side of the planet. Obviously with Patreon, I do always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a brand new video, and today the person is going to be Lewiston, who is brand new to my Patreon. A massive thank you goes out to you, and their title card has Soray from the Tales of Zestiria, and I actually love the Tales franchise. Currently replaying Tales of Arise, so if you guys want to see some stuff about Tales or other RPGs that maybe aren't Final Fantasy, let me know in the comments below. It'd be nice to hear for some ideas for some new directions for the channel. And of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia Opera Omnia, as they all deserve your love as well as me. Right, so let's take a look at this banner that we have in question. This is going to be a pretty exciting one for a lot of players, even if they're not actually pulling on this banner, which sounds weird, but it'll make sense. So the banner that we have in question here is going to contain Core, his full kit, and the first return of his kit since his global exclusive release back last year. It's going to be the last chance to grab hold of Yuri BT, and it's also going to bring along Gao and Noctis's LD kits as well. And then obviously Core's FR is brand new. So we're going to take a look at Gao first, and Noctis just gets his force enhancements here. But I actually still really enjoy Noctis, mainly for his BT effect and his zero-turn shenanigans. His damage is a bit lacking nowadays, but character like Core will absolutely help make up for that. So this will tie into why I actually do feel that Core's FR is worth pulling for, even if you don't necessarily need it. So we're going to start with Gao. Gao gets a rework here, and it's actually pretty magnificent for him. The problem that Gao has always had is that he couldn't really do anything on his own turn. He's an off-turn damage dealer, counter-attacker, has healing in his kit, all sorts of bits and pieces like that, but he had to lock himself into either his Cat Scratch or his Life Shaver modes, as it were, by using his skills, and it locked him out of using his skills, leaving him with pretty much just his HP+, which isn't all that great. But he got his counter-attacks that made up for it. Now, thanks to the way that the wording is done for his LD passive, so his basic skills get HP dumps added onto it, nothing super crazy there. But the counterattacks also get HP dumps added onto them as well. Life Shaver actually heals the party in addition. But the LD passive now gives you his Beast Teachings and his Instinct Awakening buffs at the start of the fight, which is fabulous. It gives him the ability to not have to have multiple modes on at once. You just have to have Instinct Awakening in order to get the counter Landslide. So you weren't then replacing anything with Landslide. You are now able to have two counters go off with both of his stuff going off, and it not impacting the rest of his kit, which is massively beneficial to him. The fact that he has an instant turn rate on his LD cast now as well means he can refresh the Instinct Awakening buff and also lead up with whichever counter attack you want after it as well, and you get a free skill used for the trouble. So you're now looking at, thanks to all of his counter attacks having multiple HP dumps added onto it, you're looking at 4 AoE HP dumps that heals the party with his counter attacks. His EX Awakening also makes it so that the lock for Life Shaver and Cat Scratch and the counters are taken away. So basically, I get where they were going with Gao and like the way that his modes and his rage arts worked in FF6, but it made him a really, really clunky unintuitive character to play as in Dissidia, and now that he's gotten all of these little unlocks and bits, it removes some of the clunkiness and it makes him actually pretty significant. He's not a tank character per se, he is a counter-attacker that happens to heal. He's also an Earth Enchanter, an Imperiler as well, if that becomes relevant later down the line. But his primary function is to work alongside a counter tank or a tank in general and make it so that you're getting more off-turn damage dumped. And it's actually pretty solid. Like, the amount of damage you can churn out with Gao if put in the right situation is pretty great. Honestly, stick him next to Gladiolus or Core or Galoof or Auron and you'd be surprised how much damage you can get out of Gao, and he does keep the party safe quite nicely just by healing every time he gets a counterattack. You're not going to take it to any zero turn sort of strategies or anything like that, or zero boss turn strategies, but the fact that he gets so much from enemy turns actually elevates him in pretty nice ways. So now we're going to look at Core, and of course, before I forget, massive shout-outs to MidDU for their translations on Reddit here. So if you've not used Core before, now a lot of people have used Core before, many a time, and I am definitely one of those players, because Core came out as a global exclusive character last year, whereas this, at this point, which is the JP thread for Reddit, he was a new character. So the idea with Core is that he buffs one of your characters, makes it so that that character and Core can't be broken, their bravery can't go to zero, and also increases their stats, reduces the damage they take, and also gives an additional attack from Core, which is prior to any attacks that either the enemy or the player or the character that's enchanted does, which makes for some pretty crazy shenanigans, and that's the primary function for Core. He does have others. So now he gets HP dumps across the board. Like, that's pretty much all he needs. He doesn't get a lot of them, but he doesn't really need them, because where he gets them where it matters is on his pre-follow-up attack, which now has 2 HP dumps in it, which is huge. And the stat increases that he has, all going to be amazing, all fabulous. Definitely liking all of that. He gets more attack buffs, all of that stuff. And his EX weapon is what allows him to take that ability for himself, as well as the character that he's targeting. So his LD before now would give you maxed out charges for an overhead buff that he has that previously needed to go to 10, now needs to go to 7 before you unlock Reaper's Gale. So Reaper's Gale is an instant turn, as well as the LD attack itself being an instant turn, that hits for rainbow damage, and you get to follow it up with whatever, and all of obviously Core's follow-ups trigger from all of these turns as well. So people would, Joe could say he had like a mini burst phase of his own just by using his LD followed by Reaper's Gale followed by his LD, and the charges for this would obviously also go up while he was doing his follow-up attacks. It's pretty fabulous, honestly. You get a lot of damage out of it. You're probably not going to use the mini burst phase the same way you used to, except maybe to extend the force gauge, because you're probably going to be using other characters instead of Core himself and taking advantage of the buffs and the follow-ups that Core provides, rather than using turns during force time with Core to use his LD and his Reaper's Gale spam. But the fact that he can do a decent amount of damage outside of force time so that you're building up nicely is a great thing to have access to. And the fact that he's also able to use Reaper's Gale that much more frequently, having 3 turns taken off of it, it's good stuff. We've got no problems with that. So this is before Core's FR. If you do not have Core's LD kit, don't ask questions, just get it. It's that good. The number of things that you can do with Core that you cannot do with any other character is staggering. You want to put him with practically anyone and he elevates their kit. Put him with Gladiolus. Gladiolus and Core is an extraordinary pairing that is used in JP to this day. It's that good. And if you want to take an FR along with it, then you go ahead and do that, and you're just, whether it be Core's own one or someone else's, he pairs up with so many different characters that it's hard to not just say, just pull him, if you don't have his LD kit at the very least. We then have his FR. Now, I actually really like his FR. There's 2 kind of ways of looking at him when it comes to this. So a lot of people think that you don't have to have his FR for him to be good, and that is absolutely true. You don't. His LD kit, his follow-ups, he is an off-turn damage dealer first and foremost. However, the reason that I like his FR is it broadens the number of characters that you can pair him up with. So his Force Time effect, he pairs up with Gilgamesh, which if you've played Episode Gladiolus for FF15 is actually kind of apt. But you also get the Force Time effect, which is whenever a character does a follow-up attack outside of their own turn, which includes the likes of Cisne, Kain, Core, counter-attacks, all sorts of things, and when a turn passes with a character having dealt a bravery hit going beyond 9999. This is not difficult, let's be honest. You don't need rainbow numbers to be doing that. You also get brave damage up, 50% brave and HP damage reduction, and Core's own hits have more chances to hit for rainbow hits even if it's not using his Reaper Scale attack, which is pretty good for pairing up with his FR ability. So, like I said, you don't need to have this. If you want to use like Core and Gladio together, then you're probably going to want this as, you know, certainly if you're using it as a duo clear because you want to have an FR in there somewhere. But the reason that I particularly like this is you're actually going to look at another character that's on this banner, which is Noctis, as well as Cloud, or any character that has a BT that doesn't have an FR yet, but can go well with Core, just because they can deal large chunks of damage with it. So it means that you have an FR on a character you're probably already taking along that allows you to use characters you probably wouldn't normally. So that's why I particularly like it. I do also think that it does pair up very well with, you know, other counter tanks like Gladiolus. But the core of his kit is still maintained without his FR. So if you can't pull for his FR, or if you're looking to pull for somebody like Tifa, or Minwu, or Renoa, or something like that, you can get by without it. Absolutely no problem. I, personally, don't particularly like to leave any character's kit unfinished that I plan on using a lot. That's why I went for Luna Freya's FR, even though I'm not using it that much. So, therefore, I do really enjoy Core's FR, and I enjoy it with good reason. I think it's got a lot of merit to it, a lot of just broadening of, you know, party compositions and stuff. But quite frankly, like, you don't need me to tell you that Core's busted. Like, he's ridiculous. He just does everything. He is an off-turn supreme damage dealer. You pair him up with literally anyone, and your third character is somebody like Kain, who's off in the air doing his thing, which counts towards Core's FR, by the way, then you're good to go. You don't need me to tell you more than that. So now let's take a look at the event that comes along with Core here, and it's going to be, I don't quite know if it's going to be exactly the same as it is in JP, just because we've had this event once before, although it is technically a brand new event. The banner is different. There's a lot to suggest that it's just going to be the same as what JP had. So let's take a look at that. And of course, kudos go over to DissidiaCompendium.com for their information here. And quite frankly, given how powerful Core is and how exciting he is for a lot of players, this event's a bit pathetic, honestly. So we've got the Liquid Warrior and it summons long swords here. So the only things you really have to worry about are the fact that it cleanses its own debuffs when you and has an auto hit move for its force attack. So you're not going to be able to rely on Raijin LD Call necessarily, or Rydia, or anything like that, though you can use something like Warrior of Light if this is something that worries you, depending on who you're taking with you, so that when it uses its force attack, it doesn't instantly KO you. But the only actual thing it does with its force time is increase its bravery and HP damage. And quite frankly, it is a single target boss. Yes, it has adds, but those adds have so little HP, you'll probably never have to worry about it. That doesn't have any threshold attacks, it doesn't jump turns in any way. That's pretty much it. The only thing it does is summon the longswords, and then when it does that, it will give them 100,000 bravery shield, and that's pretty much it. The long blade or longsword will do a delaying attack when it's beaten, but to be honest, you'll have probably knocked back the boss's turn rate so far that won't matter. It's not a hard fight. It's really not challenging. It's certainly not if you're taking Core. You don't have to take Core for this. There's all sorts of things you can do. You can take the offensive route and just take your biggest BT and like FR charges like available, whether it be Luna Freya going into Machina or Tidus or Terra or Kain and all of that stuff. You can do all of that and it will work absolutely fine. He has 110 million HP, which in this day and age isn't really that much when you consider quite how much damage some people can churn out. I personally plan to take Vayne and Core here because I want to play with Vayne and Core because they go so well together, and I'll probably have a bit of fun with that. I will actually point out as well that there was a bug on the JP release of Core that made Core increase the force gauge way more than he was supposed to. I would be surprised if that launched the same way for us, though that has happened in the past. So if it does, make fun of it while you still can, because that one, unlike Hamlinaut, did get patched out. So once that's all dealt with, you could just take a defensive team. If you want to take Core and Gladio, there's duo clears of this event with them that don't take that long. Because this event is as short as it is, I may actually end up uploading both an offensive and a defensive clear, both using Core, because I want people to understand just how stupid this character is, and just have a bit of fun with it, because it's not challenging. So now, of course, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and tell everyone whether you would pull on any given banner and why that might be the case. So we're going to go straight into numbers here. Big thank you, of course, to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments, and this banner is probably not going to surprise anybody. 42% of people have said that they're going to use gems, 50% of people said they're going to use 100 or more tickets, 8% of people said they'd use less than 100 tickets, and not a single person of the 100 plus people we asked said they weren't pulling on this banner at all. I am honestly torn between 100 plus tickets or gems, because Vayne was weirdly nice to me, although FR era so far has been nice to me, touch wood, that continues. But I would like Core's FR. I already have his LD kit, and you don't have to have it at all, really, if you're not going to use it. But I think it would be quite fun to open it up to being used with other characters that do off-turn damage. Perhaps somebody like Noctis, who has a BT and has off-turn damage. Something fun. I think it's nice to have a complete kit available for those characters. But, you know, you can use tickets for that kind of thing too. But I definitely think that everyone will at least have a passing interest in Core's FR. If you don't have his kit at all, just pull for it. I swear, he outlasts 95% of characters in this game. He was still being used in early Shinryu with his level 80 stuff. So let that be what it is. He's still just a crazy character. Let's go into some comments. Keller says, the Me First unit. I'm absolutely looking forward to using Core again. When he was released as a global first character, the amount of team makeups we can make with him were epic in scale, even going into C90 until Shinryu either gave bosses grotesque levels of HP and defense. Having a C90 with the rest of our team and being able to use him in more off-turn shenanigans, such as Reno, would be perfect. I'm using tickets for his FR because I have the rest of his kit, and with the amount of FRs I have, I don't necessarily think I'll need it. But given his capabilities at C90 and the fact that he's another option for off-turn damage, I've always been willing to let bosses off-turn themselves to death. That's very true. Like, I will probably invest more into his FR than a lot of people would, but I do think that it's a really cool thing to have, but it's not a necessary thing to have. If you've got his LD kit, you probably don't have to go in for his FR. I am very, very much one of these people that can't leave a character's kit unfinished, though, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Chamberlain Skeptic says, I already have Core's kit and he doesn't change much, but changes a whole lot. As a new player, you're definitely going to want to pick up Core, as his attacks deal 2 HP attacks and trigger when an enemy is targeting him or a party member marked with his buff, or himself. The thing that makes him special is additional attacks trigger before an enemy turn, which can set you up to break an enemy before that have a chance to deal a very strong attack themselves, or break up a boss taking multiple turns if you're being defensive, or do some off-turn HP shaving if you're using him offensively. His FR is a mixed bag. On one hand, it's easy with your conditions being able to deal over 10,000 bravery on turn and deal melee damage outside of your own. It pushes you into dealing off-turn damage. It's not bad at all, and we could use some more off-turn damage. It just means you better have room to let the bosses take some turns and be able to mitigate damage. I do think that, yeah, if you're going to use his FR, he's probably better off in a party composition that is going to let the boss take turns. But like I said earlier, I do also think that it opens up room for him to carry an FR into a composition that has strong to C90 damage dealers, but doesn't otherwise have an FR. So that's something to consider as well. And then finally, J-Dog says, I'll be spending a few tickets for his FR since I have his full kit. His FR isn't the most necessary thing in the planet, but it sure helps you give some options for boost during off-turn damage. Then again, Reno exists and his increases are much higher. I plan on using Core with the likes of Titus and Terra, so I'm much more likely to use their FRs over his. I find it really interesting that people are really not hot when it comes to Core's FR in general, even though a lot of people have said that they are going to be pulling, and I can assure you that a large number of the people who are cast votes here do already have his LD kit. But I do also think that it's a generic enough FR, like it's not difficult, and people were praising the likes of Iroha, Ursula for having a generic FR, but Core's is equally as generic, mainly because he fuels it himself. If you're carrying Core, he fuels it very well, and it doesn't have to be boss off-turn damage. It can be the likes of Kain or Cisne that pair up well with him. I find it interesting that people think that he's that little bit more specific and therefore aren't that fussed about it, whereas I think that it's just generic enough that it can be useful in a wide array of situations, unless of course you are using his using his kit to complement a different character's FR. The other thing I think that is worth noting is that FR is the strongest weapon in terms of stats that Core can carry, and given how frequently people seem to want to use Core, if you're not using an Ultima weapon on him, it is the strongest weapon he can equip. So now we ask the big question, should you be pulling on Core and his FR? If you don't have like Core at all, yes you should. He's very, very good. His updates to his kit are crazy, like super powerful. He doesn't actually get a whole lot that's new, but what he gets is more than enough to make him elevated. The thing with Core is that his Core gameplay is so out of the box powerful that all he really needed was damage upgrades, and that's exactly what he got. Like, the reduction in turns for Reaper's Gale and that is nice, but just that extra HP dump and the extra stats and all of that on his follow-ups is enough, quite frankly. He provides so much, he pairs up with so many characters, whether you want to go offensive and you want to go the Core and Vayne route, the Core and Tidus route, or you want to go defensive, you want to go Core and Gladio, Core and Auron, Core and Gal. They all work. Like, everything works with this character. His defensive buffs make it so that you've got two characters that can't be broken, that have reduced HP damage they take, and more offensive stats as well, so he's buffing another character while he's at it, and your third character can be somebody like Kain or Freya, who's off doing their own thing, or a support character that doesn't really care about dealing damage because they're just providing more buffs to the other two. It's just ridiculous how good he is. And honestly, I think he's one of the most fun characters to play with as well, just because of the way he interacts with other characters and the fact that the timing of his follow-ups is so unique. He can be extremely entertaining to play with, and honestly, for that reason, I honestly believe Core to be one of the best characters in Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia that has ever been in it, just because of the ways in which he interacts and he plays the game to the beat of his own drum, and I love that. His FR is not the most important part of his kit. It's not. If you have his LD kit, this banner has slightly less value, because high power stones are very premium. Like, there are other characters that need their FR a lot more than Core needs his, and while it's pretty generic, I compared it with the likes of Iroha and Ursula earlier. It's not that generic. Like, you still want to build around Core if you're going to use it. But I do think that it's a generic enough that if you wanted to pair him up with, like, Cloud, you could, and it would actually work quite well, because Cloud hits hard enough that you'll definitely meet the force time requirement. You won't get as much force time from that as you would with somebody like Vayne beating down to his own FR, but you'll get enough, and it means that you can open up your sort of horizons on the kinds of characters that you want to use, and therefore I like it. But by and large, do you need Core FR for him to be good? No, not really. Gal's actually pretty good too. Like, if you already have Gal, great. Like, pull him out. He's really cool. He's got quadruple HP dumps on his counterattacks, and his kit actually works properly now, which is really nice. And it means he's not just standing there just using HP plus every time his turn comes around. Is he beating out other counter-tanks, like, or counter-attackers? Because I don't really count Gal as a counter-tank, because he doesn't actually tank all that much. He heals, but he doesn't really reduce damage in the same ways that characters like Gladio, Galoof, and Auron do, so, or even Core for that matter. Like, there are other ways of using it. He's designed to complement those characters, not take that role on his own, which can be a little restrictive on what kind of parties you put him in, because it means that you're going to need to put someone else, because if you're letting the boss take turns, you're going to need ways of mitigating damage enough that Gal can do the things he's meant to do. But he does complement them very well. Like, once he's done that, he heals the party up on counter-attack through his Life Shaver ability. There's a lot of really nice things to like about Gal, actually. And he comes with a built-in damage buff due to being an Earth Enchant Imperiler. But that might be a bad thing once Elemental Lockouts come into play. So, by and large, if you don't have Core's, like, full kit, if you don't have his LD-based kit, you're gonna want it. If you don't, whether you pull for it is up to you. But like I've said before, from a personal standpoint, I am not somebody that likes to leave a character's kit unfinished if I can help it. So that's going to be all for today's video. I'm probably going to try and prepare as much information as I can next week as possible, given that the following week I'm not going to be in the country, so that once the community stream on Monday is done and dusted, I can just get all of that information out there and upload things periodically while I'm away. But there might be a bit of a weird look, like maybe I'll be wearing a different shirt or something because I'll have filmed things in the wrong order. So do maybe just come to expect that and don't read me for it. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. Are you planning on using Core FR? And if you are, who are you going to use him with? Let us all know in the comments below. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click that bell for notifications. And I will see you next time, beautiful. Take care.